Hi everybody. Today I would like to talk about performance in Analytic Designer. Indeed, when you design an application, you should be very careful to use the good practices in terms of performance. Often, bad design leads to slow application, which you want to avoid. To have a good user experience, you need to build fast application, which will delight your end user. So let's see some tips and tricks regarding performance. So first, let's see how the communication between an SAC application and the backend is working. So here I have created a very simple application with only one chart. And the data source of this chart is a BW query. So if we look at the network tab here in my developer tools for Chrome, I can see a lot of requests. But what I am interested in is the get response request. So I will filter on this get response and I will refresh my application. So I can see I have two get response as a result. So if I click on the first one, I can see that the request is a post request, and I retrieve some values between the brackets, so almost empty brackets. So that's the first one. And for the second request, it's also a post method, but here now I have between brackets the grids. So what it means is basically the first get response, or the first result set I retrieve, is a metadata request. So which means I don't get the data here, but I only get the metadata themselves. So it can be the name of the data model, it can be the name of the dimension, and for instance, if I drill into the hierarchy here and I go, for instance, to dimension, I can see the different name of my dimension, like country, city, distribution, and division, for instance. Now, if I go to the second request here, this is the data themselves. So here I have the result set, which is sent back by my BW system. And I can see the data if I drill in the grids here, and I go to the cell section here and the value section, I can see some values here. So these values N94638, which correspond to the Canada bar here, and the other value here, which correspond to the other country for the net revenue. So that's the way it works. So basically, when you display a chart here, behind the scene, you have two requests that are executed between the backend and the front end. So now let's see what happened if I had a second chart. So here I have added another chart with the same dimension country, but with a different measure discount. So let's refresh the page here. So we can see that we have three get response requests here. So the first one is the metadata call. Then there is a second one, which is a grids call, which corresponds to the first chart. And the last one is also a grid call, which corresponds to the second chart. So if we have a quick look, for instance, for this one, in the sales value, we can see that the value here are corresponding to the value of the second chart. What would be nice is if we could merge the two queries in one. So let's see how we can do that. So let's go to the edit mode and let's click on the query setting option here. So we can see that there is an option related to BW, which is called Enable Query Merge. So let's switch on this option, click on OK, then save the application again, and let's run the application to see what is the result. So let me open the Dev tool and go to the Network tab. As you can see, I still filter on Get Response here. And now I refresh my application and let's see how many Get Response call I have. Now you can see that there is only 2 calls instead of 3 than before. So we still have the metadata call, but we have only 1 grids call. And if we have a look at the sales value here, what we have is we have the first value correspond to the second chart here, and the second value here correspond to the first chart, and so on. So basically, the values of the 2 charts has been retrieved with this 1 call grid, which is here. So now let's have a look at another situation. So I have here an application with 2 tabs, tab 1, which contain 1 chart, and tab 2, which contain another chart. So what we're going to do is we're going to refresh the application and we're going to see what happened in terms of request with the backend. Okay, so we can see that we have 3 calls. So the first one is the metadata call, as we saw before. Then there is another one, which is a grid call with the data. So if we have a look at the data themselves here on the cells, we can see that this first call corresponds to the first chart here. And the second call is corresponding to the second chart in tab 2. So what it means is that before the application is displayed, we need to wait for chart 2 in tab 2 to be loaded. It can be frustrating if many of your users are mainly accessing to tab 1 and only a few part of them are accessing to tab 2. So let's see if there is a way to display the application when only the chart 1 in tab 1 is already loaded. If we go to the edit mode of the application, we can see that for the chart 1 here, there is one property which is interesting, which is called data refresh, and you have 3 options. And one of the options is the right answer to our problem. So you can see that the widgets are always refreshed at the first option, but second option is refresh active widget only, which means that for invisible widget, data refresh will be automatically paused. And that's exactly what we want for the chart 2, which is in tab 2. So let's click in tab 2 and select our chart here. And let's just select this option for the chart and save the application and run the application again. So if I refresh the application, I can see now that I have only 2 requests. So the metadata request and the grids data request for chart 1. And if I click on tab 2 here, I can see the other grids data request for chart 2. So by doing so, you avoid to have the 2 requests loaded at the startup time of the application. That's it for today. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thanks for watching.